I'm intrigued by what people do when they're in the slog, because it's hard. We all go through it. And the slog never really ends in the regard of we're always going to network. And how do you do that to a certain extent? So that's where I'm getting really practical. So, okay, so you don't use any software. That's fine. Um, do you use, do you find LinkedIn, practically speaking, is something that is useful? You go and meet someone, you have their card, or do you go and say, my next step is to go to LinkedIn and become friends with them so that we can then converse? Or is that just, that's LinkedIn
No,
stupid?
yes, I do use LinkedIn, and I've got like 3,500 connections on LinkedIn. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have found I've used LinkedIn Premium before, and I just stopped using it last year because I didn't think it was worth what I was paying for. Um,
Sure.
but you know, maybe I could get y'all's input on this. I use LinkedIn, and I find jobs or I find contact information on there. But then you follow up with somebody, or you try to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, and they're like, "Oh, okay," and it never comes to fruition. Virtual networking to me has not really helped. You see what I'm saying?
The best advice I have ever gotten when it comes to this dance is your job as a network sales guy, whatever you want to call yourself, is to get that next meeting, no matter what you're doing. So, what if I'm sending an email? The goal of that email is to set up the next meeting. If I'm on a phone call, then my job is the next meeting. And so, the virtual stuff that you're talking about is the same
Yeah.
thing. We do LinkedIn a lot. That's how we found you. That's how we find almost every guest we have is through LinkedIn. And we have a list of people who said, yes, I'd like to be on the podcast. And that was the last we heard of them. Like, it's just, we've reached out to them and they're like, yeah, we should. And we said, okay, let's get you on the schedule. Ghost. And now this is what separates the success from the not success. What do you do at that point? Do you let them go or do you hound them like a dog? Because statistically speaking, I have heard it takes 7 interactions before someone will actually do
I can
something.
imagine.
You have to harass
Yeah.
that person. And I would imagine in your
The same.
world, tell me if I'm wrong, I imagine it's even
Correct. It's the
worse.
same.
Yeah, probably because everybody in your world is getting
Bombard.
bombarded
Yeah.
with communication requests all the time,
Constant.
That's
which
exactly
is
right. So, like
you.
in the lobbying world, you have to, if you were talking to a legislator or you're trying to push your issue or your idea or whatever, you have to constantly, you just talking and talking and talking and talking about it, and keep throwing it back in their face. And then, oh yeah, you're the guy who's working on this issue. Okay, I got it. I mean, you're right. It's constant. Yeah.
So if you were talking to someone who wanted to start a business and they have recently started a business and they're going into the slog, you've been in here now twice, you're going through it. What would be your number one advice, putting you on the spot here, for that person? What would you say is the best thing that you've been in terms of getting deals, getting contacts that were successful, whatever you want to call that? What was your number one thing that you do when you schmooze and talk and all that stuff?
Just making sure that people know that you're available and that that you can work with anybody. You can, you're a good communicator and you're a good hard worker, or just basically coming across as available, do the work, and to accomplish the goal, but whatever the goal may be. Does that make sense?
So you're saying if I'm meeting someone new, if I make that good, strong impression, that's been your number one
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Because
Now
I find
that
it's interesting because everyone's got their own thing. Go ahead.
I was going to say that leads into the whole. I've heard tons of salespeople, like actually successful salespeople, tell me this: that it's not about selling your product or your goods as much as it is like buying into a relationship. Like you're actually creating and cultivating a relationship with the people you're meeting instead of just trying to push your wares on them.
That's right.
So I guess in your industry, that letting them know that you're available and able to do the work that they need from you is kind of cultivating or building that
Yeah.
relationship from the
That
start.
that's exactly it. That this is a relationship built. This is a relationship business. The stuff that I do, lobbying, is relationships, and if you can't develop or cultivate the right relationships with the right people, then you're not going to be very successful.
I think there's a younger generation, and it has nothing to do with age, but it's more of a tech thing. The world of the software as a service,
Yeah.
the Facebooks, the social medias, the whatevers, those kind of companies. I'm not talking about
all the
social
CRM
media.
platforms. Yeah.
Anything that's a software as a service. I think there is a belief that when I start that business, I get to skip over that uncomfortable part of building a business, right? Because customers come to me and they sign up and I don't have to talk to them. And of course, once you have that gravity, I mean, Facebook probably doesn't need a whole lot of salespeople. I'm sure they do in their ad business, but people come to them by the droves, right? Just because they know what Facebook is. And that's true for, QuickBooks and all of those things, even though they do advertising, but they're not out there networking. It's not a relational business necessarily, except maybe at the highest levels. If I'm selling, I want to be Microsoft's accounting software, that's probably something they go and hunt, right? But I think that's given these younger people who are like, well, I don't need to do cold calls. I don't need to schmooze because I run a software as a service. That's not true. and that's that's my point of that is every business is relational at some point in its lifespan. Yeah, Facebook doesn't have to be anymore to get more people. To show ads and make money, they don't have to talk to any of the stay-at-home moms or whatever that use their platform in droves, right? They don't have to talk to them. But when they got started, they certainly did. And I think my long point here is every business is relational. Gary, if someone wanted to talk to me or you, I don't know why they'd want to talk to you, but if they did for some reason, how would they do that?
They could reach out through our email, hello@thebigpixel.net, or they can make a comment on our YouTube page under any of our videos, or reach out to any of our social media networks, Big Pixel and Big Pixel NC, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and even TikTok.